Ladies, let me say this plain. Heartache ain't nothing new. We've been bleeding in silence, crying in kitchens, dancing with broken feet just to pretend we're whole. But what if I told you there's a way to walk out of his fire not scorched, but transformed? What if I told you the best way to answer pain is with power cloaked in mystery? Stay with me, not just because you need healing, but because I will teach you how to confuse the storm that tried to destroy you. When a man wounds you, the instinct is to cry out, to shout your pain into the skies, and demand that the world hears your breaking. The soul aches for release, the voice burns for justice, and the hands tremble with everything left unsaid. But there is another way, a quieter, more powerful path. A woman wronged does not need to raise her voice to be heard. She does not need to shatter the silence to shake the world. Sometimes the deepest strength lies not in the scream, but in the smile. A smile when you are expected to fall apart is not weakness, it is war paint. It is the stillness before the thunder. It says, "You did not destroy me, you only reminded me of my own strength." A smile is not denial, it is control. It is the delicate art of reclaiming power without surrendering dignity. He might expect your tears, he may look for your anger, he may listen for the door slammed shut or the accusation screamed through swollen lips. But when he finds none of that, only the curve of your lips, the calm in your eyes, he will not know what to make of it. And that confusion, that silence, will be louder than anything you could have said. See, a scream ends in an echo, but a smile lingers. It lives in his memory. It will come to him in the quiet of night, when the crowd is gone and the noise has faded. It will haunt him, not because of what it said, but because of what it didn't. He'll wonder if you ever broke. He'll wonder if you ever cared. He'll wonder if he ever had the power he thought he held over you. And while he is wondering, you are walking forward. The smile you wear isn't fake. It's not plastered to please. It's forged in fire. It's earned. It is the victory of choosing yourself, of rising above the mess he tried to leave you in. It is your declaration. I will not match your chaos. I will not mirror your damage. I will not let you make me ugly just because you didn't know how to love me. You rise, beautiful, soft, and untouchable. Because your softness is not weakness, it is resistance. You smile not to make him feel better, but to remind yourself you survived, you kept your light, you still know joy, even in the face of betrayal. That smile is the rebellion. It is the refusal to allow pain to shape you into something bitter. You don't need to scream to make him see what he lost. You don't need to curse to expose his shortcomings. Your composure does the work for you. Your peace becomes the loudest answer. And here's the truth he doesn't expect. When you respond with grace, you elevate. You rise above the pettiness, the games, the cruelty. You become untouchable in a way that 1,000 insults could never make you. You step out of the drama and into your divinity. And that, more than any vengeance, is what confuses him most. He was prepared for a fight, for rage, for a war of words, but not for this, not for you walking away with your head high and your soul intact. That kind of poise, that kind of quiet fire is rare, and it is unforgettable. So when a man wounds you and you want to scream, pause, breathe, and smile, not because it didn't hurt, not because you're pretending, but because you know that your healing is sacred. Your energy is sacred, and you will not waste it proving your pain to someone who caused it. Let your smile be your sanctuary. Let it be your boundary. Let it be the final chapter in a story that no longer deserves your voice. Smile like the sun after a storm, soft, radiant, and unstoppable. That's how you confuse a man who tried to break you. You show him you're still whole. When someone you love hurts you, the first reaction is often to run after the pieces, to chase what shattered, to gather the dust of what once felt whole. You chase closure, explanations, apologies that may never come. You chase the man, the memory, the version of yourself who felt seen, touched, desired. You chase the illusion that maybe, just maybe, if you run fast enough, you can return to before the break. But healing does not live in the chase. Healing lives in the change. It's a hard thing to learn, to stop moving towards someone who has already chosen to walk away. It feels like surrender at first, like giving up, like failure, but it is none of those things. It is clarity. It is the sacred understanding that your path no longer includes their presence. You stop chasing, not because you stopped loving, but because you started remembering who you are when you stand still in your own truth. See, chasing someone who broke you is like pouring water into a broken glass. You lose parts of yourself trying to fill something that cannot hold you. You give and still feel empty. You shrink your voice, your power, your needs just to fit into their silence. But love that must be pursued on your knees will never allow you to stand in your full height. And you were not made to crawl for affection. So instead of chasing, you change. You shift your gaze from the door they close to the horizon ahead. You become the woman who does not run after ghosts. You choose to grow. You build a new life from the bones of what was. You water yourself. You pour your attention, your time, your beauty into your own becoming. You make your evolution your answer. Because when you change, you confuse him. He expected you to stay stuck, to keep checking your phone, to replay old messages, to keep your heart parked where he last touched it, but instead, you begin again. And not in secret. You glow differently. You walk differently. You begin to attract peace, purpose, and people who don't need to be convinced to stay. The change becomes a mirror, and when he looks in, he no longer recognizes the version of you he thought he knew, the version he thought he could return to whenever it suited him. And that is where your power lives, not in bitterness, not in revenge, but in quiet transformation. You stop asking, "Why wasn't I enough?" and start declaring, "I am more than enough. I was just in the wrong room." You unlearn the idea that love should cost your dignity. You stop rewriting your worth based on someone else's confusion. And in the silence that follows your decision, you hear yourself more clearly than ever. Changing doesn't mean forgetting. It doesn't mean the pain didn't happen. It means you refuse to be defined by it. It means the moment he chose to hurt you no longer controls the story you write next. You take the lesson, not the wound. You carry the wisdom, not the weight. And as you change, you begin to realize he was never the destination. He was the detour, the reminder, the lesson dressed in longing. So no, you don't chase, you change. And in doing so, you honor the woman inside you who was always waiting to be chosen, not by him, but by you. Because the truth is, once you stop chasing someone else, you finally have the freedom to find yourself. And that kind of change, that kind of rising, that's something no man can outrun. There is a moment, raw and trembling, when a woman stands in front of the man who broke her and she thinks, maybe if I say the right words, he'll stay. Maybe if I'm softer, quieter, more forgiving than the hurt I carry, he'll remember how to love me. So she pleads, she bends, she reasons, she prays that something in her desperation will light a fire in his eyes again. But begging never births love. It only breathes life into control. And a woman who knows her worth does not beg to be loved. She builds the life that shows she already is. When you beg for love, you hand your power to someone who has already shown they don't know how to hold it. You shrink your light so they can be comfortable in their shadows. You place your heart at their feet, hoping they'll cradle it. But people who've already dropped you once are rarely careful with you the second time. And every time you explain why you're worthy of staying, something inside you unravels. The more you ask to be chosen, the more you forget that you were never meant to be an option. But building, that's different. Building is quiet power. It's turning your pain into bricks and stacking them until you've raised a temple of self-worth no man can tear down. It's deciding that you don't need someone else's approval to feel complete. It's choosing to create something new instead of reviving what was already dying. When you stop begging and start building, you become the architect of your own joy. And that kind of joy, it can't be faked, it can't be borrowed, and it certainly can't be given to you by someone who couldn't even protect your peace. The truth is, begging is born of fear, the fear that you will never feel again what you once felt with him. But that feeling, that fire, it was always inside you. You just saw it reflected in him for a while. When he left or changed or failed to show up, you thought you lost the fire, but it was yours all along. You don't need his spark to ignite your life. You are the flame, so build. Build your strength in the mornings you get up when you'd rather stay under the covers. Build your peace in the walks you take alone, the meals you cook for yourself, the prayers you whisper at midnight when your bed is cold, but your soul is slowly warming. Build your dream, your business, your body, your circle. Build your silence, build your boundaries. Build so beautifully that one day you'll look around and realize you don't even miss the thing you once begged for. And he may come back. They always do, don't they? When they see you glowing without them, when they realize you didn't collapse in their absence, he may knock on your door wearing old words in a new tone. He might say he misses the way you loved him, but he won't be able to say he misses the woman you became after him, because he never knew her. She was born in the building. She was raised in the ruins. You don't need revenge. You don't need to prove your worth. You just need to keep laying the foundation. Keep growing. Keep rising. Keep becoming the kind of woman who doesn't plead for love, but attracts it effortlessly because she radiates it from within. That kind of woman doesn't chase. They come to her, not because she begged, not because she made herself small, but because she stood tall in the rubble, hammer in hand, vision intact. There is no dignity in begging, but there is divinity in building. So if he leaves, let him. If he forgets your value, remind yourself. If he chooses someone else, choose yourself louder. You are not the abandoned. You are the builder. You are not what he left. You are what you are becoming. And no man, no matter how loved, is worth you begging for the very thing you were born deserving. Build like the world depends on it, because your world does. When someone you gave your heart to wounds you, the first temptation is often fury, the kind that rises in your throat like smoke, thick and choking, begging to be released as fire. You want to curse the days you met him, curse the way he held you like you mattered, curse the promises that turned into excuses, the love that rotted while still in your hands. You want to speak every pain back into the world and hope it burns where it came from. But cursing doesn't cleanse. It doesn't rebuild. It only keeps you tied to the wreckage. There is something far more powerful than the storm of bitterness: creation. Creation is the choice to turn your hurt into something new, not just healing, but making. Something beautiful, something strong, something lasting. While he chose to destroy what you had, you choose to create what he never could. You take what tried to break you and mold it into art, into growth, into something that speaks for you long after you've gone quiet. Because real power is not in how loudly you can curse someone's name. It's in how gracefully you rise without needing to say a word. There's something sacred about choosing to create instead of curse. It means you no longer need him to understand what he did to you. You no longer require an apology to validate your pain. You alchemize the suffering. You turn every sleepless night into a sentence, every betrayal into a brushstroke, every silent goodbye into a seed that blooms somewhere down the line. Creation says, I still own myself, even after the chaos, even after the hurt. When you create instead of curse, you become the author of the next chapter. You don't sit in the ashes blaming the wind. You build, you write, you sing, you paint, you plant, you speak, you start again. And every time you do, you reclaim a little more of your spirit. You stop living inside the echoes of what he did and start living inside the story you're shaping from it. Your life becomes a living testimony that pain may visit, but it doesn't get to stay. You show the world and yourself that beauty can still bloom in places that once held ruin. You see, anyone can curse. That's easy. That's reaction. That's the human impulse to fight hurt with hurt. But to create, that takes soul. That takes vision. That takes a woman who's done being defined by what happened to her and is ready to be defined by what she makes from it. A woman who puts her hands in the dirt of her grief and grows gardens, who sits with her sadness until it becomes a melody, who gathers her rage, not to throw it like stones, but to build something sturdy, something sacred, something stunning. Let them talk. Let them wonder why you didn't collapse, why you didn't strike back, why you didn't curse his name the way he expected. Let them hear your silence and feel its weight. Let them see the art, the peace, the power you've created and realize they were never the center of your story. They were just the catalyst, the spark, the storm that watered your roots so you could grow even deeper. When you create instead of curse, you send a message far louder than anger. You say, I am not what you did to me. I am what I chose to do with it. You remind yourself that you have the final say, not in what happened, but in what it becomes. And that kind of power doesn't just heal, it transcends, it inspires, it liberates. So take every piece of that pain and shape it, build with it, speak from it. Let it fuel your next masterpiece, not for him, not to prove anything, but because you deserve to live in a world that reflects who you are, not just who hurt you. Curse him, and the pain echoes. Create, and the pain transforms. One leaves you stuck in the moment. The other makes something timeless out of it. And when they ask you how you survived, how you stayed so soft, so brilliant, so whole, you'll smile gently and say, I didn't curse him. I created me. There comes a moment after betrayal when the weight of what you carried starts to fall on you all at once. The love you gave without hesitation, the nights you waited for his call, the apologies you never received, the promises that unraveled in your hands like thread. And in that moment, everything inside you screams to collapse, to fold into yourself, to disappear. The world feels too heavy, your own skin too loud, and the pain too loud to silence. But what you do next in that silence is everything, because you have a choice. You can collapse or you can command, and that choice will change everything. To collapse is to let the moment define you, to let someone else's inability to love you properly become your mirror. It is the temptation to believe that because he dropped you, you are unworthy of being held. It is the lie that says you are too broken to begin again. Collapsing feels easier. It feels like surrender, like relief from the ache. But the danger is, once you go down that path, it can be hard to return. You get used to the dark, you start calling it home, but commanding, that is the sacred rebellion. That is standing tall when everything inside you wants to fall. That is looking at the ruins around you and refusing to let them write your ending. When you command, you do not pretend that you're untouched. You do not fake strength. You simply choose to lead yourself forward, to rise with the wisdom of what hurt you, not the weight of it. You become your own force, your own anchor, your own answer. A woman who commands herself after heartbreak becomes something unshakable. Not because she doesn't feel, but because she chooses to stand anyway. Her voice may tremble, her knees may buckle, but her spirit remains firm. She does not beg for understanding. She does not perform her pain for sympathy. She simply gathers herself, piece by piece, breath by breath, and walks forward as if every step is a declaration. I am still here. Commanding is not loud. It is not about rage or revenge. It is quiet, intentional power. It's how you get out of bed when grief wants you to stay under the covers. It's how you smile at strangers when your heart is still bleeding inside your chest. It's how you refuse to answer his texts just because he suddenly remembered your name. You are no longer moved by what once moved you. You are choosing yourself now, and that is the purest form of command. When a man expects you to collapse and instead finds you composed, centered, and calm, he will not know how to respond. He thought you would chase, break, beg. He thought his absence would unravel you, but your presence becomes the resistance. Your wholeness becomes the protest, and your peace, the kind he cannot disrupt, becomes the answer to every question he never thought to ask. There is nothing more confusing to someone who tried to tear you down than the sight of you standing taller than ever. Command is walking away without slamming the door. It is saying less, but meaning more. It is walking into rooms with your shoulders back, your head high, and your energy untouchable. It's how you teach the world how to treat you, by how fiercely you treat yourself. You no longer need to explain why you deserve better. You embody it. You live it. You become the living proof that healing is not just possible, it's powerful. And here's what they won't tell you. It's not about being perfect. You can still cry. You can still miss him. You can still have nights where the ache returns and the silence feels like a weight pressing against your ribs. But even in that, you do not collapse. You rest. You breathe. You feel. But you do not surrender to the emptiness, because you've tasted your own strength now, and you know it's real. You know that your worth is not tied to who stayed or who walked away. It is tied to how you held yourself when everything told you to fall. So no, you don't collapse. You command. You command the room when you enter. You command your healing with intention. You command your time, your energy, your heart. You are not at the mercy of anyone else's love or lack of it. You are the storm they thought they escaped. You are the calm after the fire. You are the woman who chose to rise not in spite of the pain, but because of it. And once you realize that power, there is no going back, because the world shifts for a woman who learns to command herself. She becomes unshakable, unreachable, unforgettable. Not because she never broke, but because she never stayed broken. There comes a time in a woman's life when she grows tired of offering explanations for her growth, tired of shrinking her evolution into digestible pieces just so others can swallow her without choking. She begins to realize that her transformation isn't something to defend, it's something to live. She no longer stretches her tongue to soften her truth. She no longer folds herself into tiny shapes to fit into the spaces where she once felt safe. She evolves, and in that evolution, she finds freedom. When a man hurts you, the world often expects you to explain, to offer reasons for why you no longer answer his calls, why your laugh has changed, why you dress differently, love differently, speak with a little more steel in your voice, and a little less sugar on your tongue. They want to know why you're no longer that soft, predictable version of yourself. But you owe no one an explanation for surviving. Growth, real growth, makes people uncomfortable, especially the ones who only knew you before the bloom. They will question your silence, your boundaries, your distance. They'll ask what happened to the girl who once waited on text messages like prayers, who watered dead things hoping they'd rise again. They will romanticize your past while dismissing your power. But your job is not to reassure them. Your job is to keep becoming. Explaining yourself pulls you back into conversations that don't deserve your voice. It invites people to dissect your choices as if they were entitled to access what they never helped you build. You don't have to write essays for those who misread you. You don't have to slow down your pace for people still standing where you left them. You don't need to apologize for demanding more of yourself, for walking away from chaos, for choosing peace even if it made you look cold. You evolve because the pain forced you to. Because somewhere in the aching, you realized the version of yourself who tolerated less wasn't enough for where you were going. You evolve because the heartbreak was a mirror, and in it you saw the parts of yourself you'd abandoned to keep someone else comfortable. You evolve because staying the same was suffocating, and the only way out was through. You evolve because your spirit whispered, "There is more to you than this," and you listened. A woman who evolves doesn't look back for permission. She stops explaining why she no longer accepts breadcrumbs. She stops overcompensating for the space she takes up. She stops waiting for people to understand her boundaries before she enforces them. Evolution is not about arrogance, it's about alignment. It's about knowing that your value doesn't increase or decrease based on someone else's comprehension. When you stop explaining, you start conserving. You save your breath for building, your voice for blessing, your energy for the people who meet you where you are, not where you used to be. You speak less, but your presence says more. You become the woman who walks into the room and doesn't need to announce herself because her evolution arrives first. She is no longer seeking validation. She is standing in her truth. And here's the thing, the ones meant to walk with you will not need long explanations. They'll feel your change and honor it. They'll see your growth and clap for it, even if it takes you farther away from them. The ones who question your evolution were never meant to witness the fullness of it anyway. Let them wonder, let them whisper, let them mourn the version of you they once understood. You don't explain growth, you embody it. You don't justify your elevation, you live it boldly. And every step forward becomes a quiet revolution against the version of you who once thought survival meant staying small. So evolve and let the silence do the talking. Let your boundaries speak for you. Let your joy speak for you. Let your glow, your goals, your grace all speak for you. They are the only language worth learning now. Because a woman who evolves without explanation is a woman who has finally remembered who she is. And there is nothing more powerful than that. You are not just a woman scorned, you are a woman reborn. You don't have to scream to be heard, you don't have to fall to be seen. Confuse him, not with cruelty, but with your unbothered brilliance. When a man hurts you, don't fight to stay in his story. Write your own. And when he looks for you, tell the wind to carry your laughter so he knows you've risen.